All right, that was easy. So now we're taping this training for anybody who didn't catch it. For anybody who's now catching up in the training video that they're watching, we've just gone through and looked at the budgets and P&L section of the Business Intelligence Portal on Confluence. So we will now take a look at Adaptive Insights, which is the new tool. So for this, I'm going to go ahead and log in as Karen. And so if we click on that link, if you click on that link in the email or on Confluence, you'll be taken here. And Karen, I have a copy of your 30 minutes. And great. So here we are logged in as Karen. If everybody could go in and change their password when they log in, everybody has a unique password right now that's in your email. But if you can change your password, that would be great. I will turn it over to Nate. Nate, why don't you give these guys a little bit of a tour through these sections here. A little bit of a high level, sheets, levels, and versions.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Adaptive. So Adaptive is comprised of sheets that are shared on levels within versions, which is to say that we'll have a version for each model run that we complete, and you all will be working in sheets at the level that you're assigned.
So it's a lot like Excel. So Excel, in Excel, everybody had their own model. Everybody's own model is their level. So UP is a level, environmental markets is a level, those are divisions. Each individual, marketing is a level. All of those different business units are levels.
Yeah, and I think the best way to visualize that is to go in and look at this income statement. This is a sheet within Adaptive. And up here, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit here, give everybody a better view. In the upper right-hand corner, you can always orient yourself within Adaptive as to where am I right now and what version am I working on. So here you can see that this is for the general division only, and if you click this drop down, you can see that this is all of the levels within the division general. And so we'll be looking at marketing here since we're logged in as Karen. The other thing you can do is toggle the versions that you're in, right? So if you want to see your actual performance, you would select actuals. And if you want to see previous model runs, they'll be organized in folders here where there'll be a working copy and a locked copy for each. So, as models are checked in and we finalize our budgets for a given period, we're going to lock it down and always leave you guys a working copy so that you can throttle up or down your projections based on what you learn over the quarter or half year in between model runs. And so some of the common sheets that you guys will be seeing, and these are organized in this sheets view here. Actually, let's go to the overview so we can zoom in. So sheets are kind of categorized by shared and then by distinct user groups. So we have environmental markets has a sheet there now. UP has a bunch of different sheets. We have an archive that'll always be empty.
Most of you guys are going to be living in income statement. I mean, obviously, you're going to be spending a lot of time in income statement. You're going to be looking at other expenses and then maybe manual adjustments. But for a lot of the people on this call, you're going to be living in income statement and other expenses.
Yeah, specifically for this model run, manual adjustments will be where we bring in a lot of projections that are done outside of Adaptive still. And so you can see other expenses is organized similarly to the other expenses tab in your old Excel models, where there's a list of accounts here, and then a notes field that can be populated, and then some expenses. Okay, yeah. So
let's start with income statement. So when you go into Adaptive, the first place you're going to go is you've got that hamburger menu on the upper left. the first thing you're going to do is go into Sheets and say, okay, let me look at my income statement. That's going to be your kind of main view.
Yeah.
So hamburger menu, look at the different sheets. Obviously, you're going to want to look at the income statement.
Right. And so if we wanted to see, say, perhaps what happened in the full year 2016, we could open up either the actual sheet or we could drop into the July 2016 model. So if we go look at the locked version of that model, we ought to be able to confirm general overview here. There's a toolbar up at the top that you can use to change the view that you're looking at. So this kind of graph with the Excel filter symbol in front of it will allow you to toggle what dates you're seeing when you're looking at it, whether you're seeing months, quarters, years. And so we'll drop off the months there. You can pick when the date starts and ends. We've preset these as much as we can across all sheets that you guys are going to be using so that what you see when you open it up will make some sense. So we've just dropped the months off of this, and so it becomes a little bit more digestible to look at. And again, we're in the July 2016 locked. Do you have Confluence open in the background?
Yeah, here.
Okay.
So just, there's a lot of information coming at people, so we're going to try to go really slow here. So the thing is, first of all this information is on Confluence in this quick start guide. It seems like a lot. It seems like a complicated interface, but it's really not. So on the quick start guide, Sheets. Much like Excel, Adaptive is organized into sheets. From your home page, click the menu button at the top left and click on Sheets. We've organized Sheets into some basic groups like Shared, EM, UP, right? So Sheets, click there, right? Let's just leave here. I'm just trying to repeat as necessary. So Shared Sheets, EM's got some sheets, and UP's got some sheets. Remember, income statement is kind of the good starting point. Sorry if I'm being repetitive. Levels. When you're viewing a sheet, use the drop downs on the top right to choose which level, the company as a whole, a division, or an individual business unit. When you're viewing a division, for example, utility partnerships or environmental markets or corporate, this will be a total of all the levels underneath it, right? So you remember our company is organized into corporate, which comprises everything. We have then divisions. Our main divisions are general, which includes HR, IT, marketing, and legal. We have the UP division, which includes all the different UPs. We have the environmental markets division, which includes commercial, wholesale, etc. We have rep division, which has nothing else. It's just got rep. CS3 division, which has nothing else. So levels are what level you're in, how deep in the tree. Versions. Also use the drop down on the top right to choose which version. Like Nate was talking about, July 2016 working copy, sandbox, or actuals. Our versions are grouped into folders by date. So each time we create a new set of projections, we create a new folder, right? And then So as Nate was talking about, we're here in the income statement. And let's start by looking at actuals for marketing, right? And there's this little handy dandy guy, this display options, that's also referred to down here in pro tips. Display options, click this button to view just the yearly totals, and then save if you like that view. So those two buttons are referenced down there. That's going to be something you're going to be doing all the time. So here, actuals, undo, let's not look at months or quarters. Let's look at this, and here you go.
Okay. Yeah, so going back to the direction that we were headed earlier, you can see here that this sheet, this income statement is set up similar to the models in that the 1,000 level of accounts are collapsed to begin. And so you're looking at the collapsed version. If you want to see more detail for account level details, you can just expand those sections. And so it's organized with revenue at the top, cost of sales, then operating expenses, which flow down into our profitability metrics area, leading off contribution margin, then down to EBITDA, net income, and there's some supplemental views down to the bottom for different business units that are going to be using those. Right. Okay. So back to Confluence. So one of the things we want to do is show you that what you're seeing here is what exists. And so what we're going to do is check the actual performance here of marketing in 2016 to what's been posted to Confluence, and cross our fingers that those two things look similar. So if we go to marketing,
They do look similar. I know that.
actuals and projections.
Just go to budgets and P&Ls.
I got it. I've got it. All right. So if we go to marketing, we can see that the actual financial performance for 2016 here and 2015 were negative 44K and negative 488K, respectively, for 15 and 16. And dropping back to the models, you can see here that that neatly matches up. Similarly, if we were to toggle between versions and go from actuals and drop into July 2016 projections, one would hope that we would be able to see similar projected numbers on Confluence as we posted there for the July 2016 refresh model run.
So we took all of your models for your last model run and we posted it up to Adaptive to make sure Adaptive is working. So now you have, full model, your full last models up on Adaptive. And for anybody who doesn't know, I just want to refresh one thing. For anybody who doesn't know how to get to their Confluence page, that, if you had, everybody had a Confluence page in budgets and P&Ls that has all of their historical plan and actuals. So you can click on non-UP actuals and projections, and there, that's what Nate searched for and found. This is the marketing page that's got all of the performance. That's the way that you're probably used to looking at, used to accessing it, but now this is going to be replaced by Adaptive.
Correct.
So, go ahead.
Okay. And so if you look down in the projection section of the Confluence page, you can see that the most recent projection run, which is the one at the top, is the July 2016 refresh initial run. And we were projecting negative 518, 600, and 619 over the years 16, 17, and 18. So dropping back into Confluence, we can see that we're at 518, 600, and 618. There was a little noise transcribing information from one version to the next, and we expect slight fluctuations to persist, especially in headcount allocations, but everything is reasonably close to within what was originally projected in July 20.
So that is a view of, so far what we've gone over is these are sheets. Sheets exist for different level, at every different level, and there's these different versions. And so now you can look at your actuals, use that little display options thing to be able to blow it out by year. Everybody could go in and kind of look at actuals and see how, and look at their last plan. One other thing, you might want to do is in here, in display options, you can say, okay, you know what? I'm looking here at July 2016 locked, right? And that's the last one that happened. Here you can do a version comparison and say, okay, you know what? How did 2016 do versus actuals? So I'll choose comparison version 1, actuals, bam, 2016, okay. Okay, great. So marketing was projecting negative 517, so they were projecting to spend $517,000 across everything in marketing expense, and in fact, they came in at negative 488, which is, what we have on Confluence as well. Negative 518 was the plan. It came in as negative 488, right? So this is the new version of this whole thing on Confluence is now here, and it's going to get continually updated monthly. You can always see your performance here monthly and compare it versus various versions of plan. So that's that comparisons thing. That's the one addition, and it does note, we do note it here, by the way, on the. If you go back up here, on the quick start guide at the bottom here, you see in pro tips, use this button to view the yearly totals. You can also use this button to do comparisons between versions, e.g. plans versus actuals. So that's kind of, so far we haven't gone over actually setting your projections. We've gone over kind of viewing things and looking at old projections and comparing. Any questions on that? Wow, fantastic.
Great.
Okay, great. Want to go on?
Yeah, sure. So moving on, what are we doing now? We're doing our January 2017 projections. And so where you're going to be doing most of your work is down here in the Jan 2017 working copy. Another good thing about Adaptive is that it will always ask you after you've made a change, and it could be that you've changed the view that you're looking at. It could be that you've changed data within a sheet that you're working in. It'll always ask you if you want to save before you go. And that's saved my butt a few times already. So I want to highlight that. And this little save icon here is where you're going when you want to save changes that you made to a sheet. So in the Jan 2017,
So it does not save automatically?
does not save automatically, but it will always prompt you if you've changed something.
Okay.
That little disk icon in the left, that's the save. The only time you guys are going to want to save is when you change your display view or when you actually input data, which we'll be talking about. That's when you're going to want to save.
Correct.
You're not going to be allowed to save anything you're not allowed to save. We're really taking a lot of pain to make sure that if a version is locked, you guys can't change it. You know, if a version is actuals, you guys can't touch it. So don't have a whole lot of fear, as much fear as you had in this world versus Excel. Excel was a land where, you know, users could cause problems. In this world, we're really trying to prevent that.
Yeah, and there's also a fairly robust audit trail tool that we can use to unwind anything if things do get complicated. So continuing through, what we did here for this January 2017 working copy was roll forward the previous version. And so what that means is that we've brought in some of the assumptions that you had in the last checked-in model run.
Why don't you go over
So bouncing back to Confluence here and reviewing our basic workflow. At the start of each modeling run, you'll get an email telling you to log into Adaptive, start your work in the model. So you can go through all sheets that you use to make up your projections. And you want to pay particular attention to sheets ending with the word assumptions. So one of the conventions that we've used is naming our sheets, other expense assumptions, allocated expense assumptions, program assumptions, weather assumptions, direct marketing tactics assumptions. So assumptions sheets are the ones where you're going to be doing entry. And some of the other sheets are visualizations of, you know, intermediately computed amounts or, you know, by product ID revenue for UP, for example.
So Nate, I have a question on that. So I thought I had heard you say a minute ago that we were going to be building our budgets in the Adaptive January 2017 working copy, but now it sounds like you're saying we're doing it in assumptions and it shows up in the working copy.
It's a really good question.
Yeah, thank you. There's a distinction being made there. That assumptions is the end of the sheet within the working version. So the name of the version is Jan 2017 working copy. And the name of the sheet that you're working in within the version is called other expenses assumptions.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Great. Cool. And so you can see here that this sheet is organized by months with a list of expense accounts and some space for notes. And if you slide over to the right, you can see now that our date fields have been expanded through 2019. And so for all of you, I believe, what happened was we carried over the assumptions for 2018 into 2019 as we rolled these things forward. So everything just got brought flatly over. But I want to highlight a little bit of kind of how this works when you're entering data. You know, so let's say that we're going to put in something for consultants here in row 13. And we're going to spend $50 on consultants a month, right? So you can just click into it and enter it. And let's say you didn't want to do that for all 36 months that we're doing here. If you right click into the cell that you just edited, you have this option here to copy forward and copy it to the end, right? And you can see that that just wrote over that all the way over to the right there. And another thing that's kind of helpful for a lot of these things, we use kind of a round figure assumption, and it changes a little bit over time. So one of the things you can do if you go to advanced here in the copy forward section is copy it forward with an incremental increase, or copy it until a specific time, or change the value and then copy that forward in a different way too. That's pretty handy. Another thing that you can do, if you wanted to say that this was equal to something else that's going on in this sheet, is you can use this formula button here, and you can start kind of setting things equal to a percentage of another cell that you've edited in there, or something along those lines.
That's pretty complicated.
Yeah, and we're here to help with that.
Yeah.
You have the flexibility to do things like that. Let's say you wanted it to be payroll taxes were 8% of your hourly wage assumptions in here, or something like that. Just give us a buzz and we'll walk you through it the first time, and then you'll be a pro from there on out.
Yeah, and we're
Do
here.
the formulas work the same as, are they the same formulas as Excel, or is it got its own?
Yeah, it's incredibly different, and frustratingly so.
Yeah, there's no, it's not like equals D4 type mumbo jumbo.
Yeah, so the reason why there's so much flexibility in Adaptive is that it basically makes everything a specific reference within a level, within a version, et cetera, et cetera. And so there are attributes to each data point in there, including like the time of month, the month that it's in is equal to this in a given cell.
Yeah.
And that might not mean anything to anybody, but it's very, very specific. And it allows us to be more sure of what we're doing in there.
Okay, so you would hit save, but we're not going to hit save here.
Show them the prompt if you back out.
Well, yeah, we'll go back. It'll tell us if we want to crack out. Yeah. Okay, so why don't you do this? Here, show me 2016 locked budget versus the new budget.
Okay. So
in fact, do it not for marketing, but let's leave marketing land for a second.
Okay.
Log in as Scott Edson, do commercial. That one hasn't been changed.
okay. So you guys all heard that. We're gonna log out for a second as Karen, come back in as Scott, and cruise around in our commercial sales assumptions.
Well, in that, are we able to edit the format? Like if I want to delete a bunch of rows from the income statement that are, irrelevant or duplicative, where it's like UP, travel and accommodations, retail, travel and accommodations, corporate, I can't delete.
The income statement? No.
Okay.
You wouldn't need to because they collapse,
Right.
right? So you're not going to see them.
Yeah. I'm just saying from an ease of consolidating, just so, because I might hand this out to, like to Darren, Gates, Brooke, each to kind of inputs in on the throw. Maybe for them to just say, here's the one for travel and accommodations versus
The other expense assumption sheet, you can have as many rows or as few as you want.
Okay.
On that sheet, you can. But
Okay.
everybody's income statement is standardized.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep. So if you want to have, just a bunch of rows for Darren and then a bunch of rows for somebody else and a bunch of rows for somebody else, and they'll add up together.
Right.
So travel here, travel there, blah.
Right. Okay.
So what we're doing now is, are you in Scott?
Yeah, so we just logged into Scott, and so one of the places that's really handy to go is this Sheets overview thing, and there is a good place to set what version you want to be working in and what level you want to be working at. Because when you open any of these sheets from here, after you've set these levels in this sheet, these levels in this version, that'll carry on to all the sheets that you open after that. And what I mean is that what we'll do is we'll get into the January 2017 one. We'll set that here. And we'll say that we want to look at commercial, but just to show you guys what that looks like is under environmental markets, you're selecting commercial here, right? And we're going to start by looking at the income statement. And so if you right click, open like a new tab, it's very handy. Those settings will carry forward into all the tabs that you open.
Yeah,
Is there
let me
something similar to
slow down and rewind there just so you saw it all. So we logged in as Scott. As Scott, we went to hamburger menu. That's where you always start. Always start by clicking sheets. Where do you start? Income statement. It's a handy dandy sheet, right? And then make sure you're looking at the right version, which is the time period, and the right level, which is your particular business unit or division, right? So we set the level to be commercial for Scott. We set the version to be, let's look at this July 2016 locked, because we want to kind of start with where our old one was. And what he did then is said, okay, right click, open a new tab, right? So then we kind of still have this list of different versions here, and then we've got this guy over here, right? And then, why don't you open a new tab that's the Jan 17 and compare the two.
Or should we drop it in the comparisons thing?
Well, forget the comparisons fancy.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
so just to give you an idea, let's look at this one yearly and then look at.
So I'm opening up another income statement window, and I'm just going to drop all the months and quarters off of this so that it's only years. I was going to put side by side. And so now that we've gone down to years for both, and you can see here kind of, I'm going to line up the other guy over here. Moving fast as molasses. All right, so we have July 2016, and you can see that these are both opening into the same version because we were using our handy overview sheet to do so. So we're going to push this one forward to the January 2017 working copy. And it's going to ask you if you want to leave because I just changed the way the dates look. And you will lose that each time unless you hit save. So again, we're going to drop months. And we'll hold on to 2016 there. And so you can see here that we have some kind of different things going on, right? We have our previously projected 2016 over here on the left at 4.124, and then we have our actuals on the right here at 5.191. And as you cruise down, you can kind of start to see where some of the differences between actuals and projections were, but that things are staying fairly similar across future projections because those numbers haven't been edited yet.
Yeah.
Assuming you have anything to add.
Yeah. So I would say, so just to be clear, so what's happening is, and I'm just gonna, I often just keep them in the same guy so that you can just kind of, once you're in there, you can kind of bop back and forth if you have the same format. So you've got July 2016 locked. So this is what commercial was forecasting at that time. Commercial was forecasting contribution margin of 353, 467, and 515. So that was just commercial recs, right? So they were forecasting, a gross margin of 1.1 million, a million plus, and then you take off all the expenses and contribution got you down to 350, 460, and 515. Now in the new projections, okay, here, Jan 2017 working copy, what's happened is as you've moved forward, green becomes actuals, right? So if you're looking at actuals, they're green, right? So in Jan 2017, it's actually going to show you actuals because what happened for the July 2016 locked is we froze the period in time and we didn't allow the period in time to move forward. For the working copies and future projections, we allow the period in time to move forward and actuals flow in. So versus the projection of 350 contribution margin, how did you guys actually do? Well, the contribution margin in commercial came in at 563. Great job. So the projection was much better. And in this new projection run, the old projection run showed 2017 contribution margin at 467 for 17. The new projection run is showing 205, right? And where's the big difference? Well, we told you that we just copied revenue forward, right? So gross margin is 1361 in the new one, while gross margin in the old one was 1361. Scott, you following along? Obviously, this is your baby. So 1361 of gross margin stayed 1361 because you haven't updated your revenue assumptions. But what happened? Staff was 741. Staff is now 1,033,000. Wow, what happened? You guys all of a sudden are spending so much more money on staff. Now, here's a nice time for us to go and make a departure back to Confluence. And, in your, budgets and P&Ls, it says here, as you're going through, go through all the sheets, if you're projected, assumptions, we don't actually reference it here. But on the budgets and P&Ls here, you've got the employee allocations, right? So what's going on here? Let's open this. Most of you guys are familiar with this thing because you've been looking at it and negotiating with each other. You go in here and you say, okay, well, commercial in the July 2016 refresh
CBD.
was called CBD, and it had all these people, Brian, all these people we're familiar with, right? Now it's got all these new people: Associate Director, Marketing CNI, Manager, Regulatory Affairs, Senior BD Manager, East Coast, Senior Originator, Trader. All those underlined guys, that's new ones, right? So what's happening here is, as one would expect, the staff expense for commercial was at 741. Now the staff expense for commercial is at $1.3 million, right? So that's a nice kind of a nice way to do it is to look at, to refresh. What we did is we went into Scott, looked at a couple different versions and compared them, and then saw the staff difference, and then went to allocated expenses or allocated staff allocations.
Staff allocations. Right.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense from a staff allocations perspective. I assume this is kind of where, Scott and I, or Kim and Scott and I have the conversation that says that the goal in order for commercial to support staffing.
Exactly.
And so
Yeah.
it rolls right back into the top line number that says, oh, well, if that's the level of staffing, then you need to get this goal.
One would expect that if we're spending not 741 but $1.3 million, that the gross margin would go up from 1361 to something else, right? Because we decided to hire more salespeople, right? And so where does that happen? Well, if we go to here, we say, okay, in Confluence, budgets and P&Ls, Cloud Planning Quick Start Guide. And this would apply to you too, Adam, or anybody who's got revenue. If you are projecting revenue in a sheet outside of Adaptive, make your projections, work with finance as necessary, and paste the resulting revenue and COGS into manual adjustments. So we do some of these things here. Click on that. That's also referenced in budgets and P&Ls. In order to allow flexibility in projecting revenues in some product lines, we do revenue projections in Google Sheets and paste it in, right? So for commercial rec projections, you can click on this, and here you go. This is all the stuff that leads into the commercial rec projections, and we allow you to do it in a Google Sheet because in a Google Sheet you have all sorts of flexibility, right? And then it leads into what's happening, these totals, these booking notionals and bookings COGS, one tab for each model run, and that's referenced here. We say, okay, following links will only work if you have permission. Please make a new tab for each projection run and leave it unchanged. We can always rewind Google if you screw something up because Google Apps docs have infinite rewind. In most cases, finance will help you create it, and then once it's done, you will go into this sheet. Leave this sheet. Manual adjustments. So for commercial, bam, this is where everything gets pasted in. So you would go in and paste in your new stuff from commercial revenue Google Sheet. For some reason, this is locked right now, and we're not allowing you to change it. That's a problem on our end. We're generally overlocky in this system. So if you find
that's a good distinction to make is that gray is locked and white is editable in terms of cell color. In the past, we highlighted things as yellow where you need to do input. Blue, unless it says total and it's highlighted that way. Blue are intermediate sums you'll see on the income statement if you blow things out. But gray is locked and uneditable, and white is editable.
Great. So that's kind of going through and looking at, giving it, kind of looking at with a critical eye at commercial. How are we doing? What's the new projections? The other thing that you would obviously do is go into other expense assumptions. As commercial, you can go in here. Now this is the locked version. Obviously, it's not allowing you to change it. If we look at the
manual was locked.
Oh, right. Manual. Nah,
Okay.
So here you can go in and change whatever you want to change. You know, update your things, change rows as necessary, go nuts. You know, this is kind of a go nuts area. So coming back to workflow, you know, in here, where did we go? You know, we went through at the start of the modeling run, go through all the sheets, update assumptions. If you're projecting outside, bring it in. When you are satisfied and receive the appropriate sign-offs from any business line managers, notify the finance team, and then we'll review your projections and work with you to make adjustments. So that's in your Jan 2017 working copy. You know, update it and then notify us, and we'll work with you.
So, couple of how many so there's commercial. I know my kind of business units, and then there's rep. This is global. Is it a global? How many different business units are there? And so I know we have the individual
Damn good
applications,
question.
but how many? How do some of those other units get allocated? Right? Because like sales will have. I assume sales has its own income statement and its own kind of projections, but some of that it all has to get allocated out to rep or to commercial or to other places.
Sales is a new one this year. So what has happened in the past is everything in all the cost centers in general, marketing, IT, finance, HR, etc., rolled up into general and then got allocated out, and you received an allocation. So for example, in here, everything should be working and up to date so you can see it. You know, so for example, in Jan 2000, in your actuals, let's take a look at this. Commercial income statement. You know, really the good data is 15 and beyond. 14 is kind of still it wasn't fully coded by divisions and everything the same way. But here we're looking at actuals, and what happened is, you know, you came in with 868 of contribution margin in 2015. So 2015 was far better than expected. But you had 610 of allocated expenses, right? So your total EBITDA was 258. So you were allocated a big chunk of general, right? Now going forward, not only will general be allocated, but some piece of sales will also be allocated. So, but sales doesn't include as many people anymore, right? Because those are already still part of commercial and everything like that. So sales shouldn't be that big a chunk anymore.
Sumit, I know this is also a different year in terms of how we're approaching conferences and travel. Karen was asking about this. Provide a reminder to folks on how to represent that.
Yeah. Back to Confluence. How do we budget for conferences and membership? This is the area of subject of much controversy. While we task marketing with a leadership role. So marketing is taking this leadership role in you know, we've all gone over this in management team as to this is the set of conferences and memberships. We do like to allocate significant memberships and conferences that are related to a business line as to that business line. And the reason is for cost control, because people tend to be much more aware of the spend if it's coming to hit their contribution margin than if it's just part of this huge, what is, you know, at our company, we have a $3 million plus amount of overhead. So if we let that balloon without hitting people individually for it, it's not going to be as good for us financially. So what we do is we try to allocate that and put that into individual groups, even though
And T&E?
T&E as well. And same principle. The principle applies.
And Sumit, can you talk about what we do if we have other expenses that it's unclear where to allocate it? For example, marketing has a subscription that is primarily used by UP, and so we don't know if we should put it in the marketing budget or if it should be put in the UP budget. And my thought was, it probably should go in UP because otherwise then it gets allocated across the company, which is maybe not fair to other business units. But if we have a general philosophy on that, that would be helpful.
Totally, you're totally right on the general philosophy. The general philosophy is try to put it where it belongs, and if it doesn't have a home that's clear, or if it's too painful to come up with the home, then it goes into general area. But the goal is to try to put it, that one, totally,
Maybe
rep
UP
is going to
shared.
complain. Put it to UP share. Rep is going to complain if they're paying for a subscription that's only used by UP. I would. So.
Right. Okay, great, thank you.
One other philosophical question for finance. I know we're forecasting at a monthly level, for 3 years. Can you speak to the vision of moving towards going quarterly? Can you speak to the level of accuracy that you're looking for people to have throughout the year versus just being right at the end of the year about the amount of projected spend and or revenue coming in? In other words, when would you actually care if halfway through the year, we're relatively accurate if we hit the end of the year piece?
It's weird echo. Hello? Okay, so we care. This is something that we look at every quarter at the board meeting level, pretty in depth. And so we look at it and we say, hey, how is the company doing for the year? If we're lagging behind in particular areas, do we think we're going to catch up? There is, every month when we do the monthly close, we look at a variance versus projections. And we say, hey, year to date, how is UP doing? And if UP's got issues, then they're probably going to get a call. Scott, you and I, we've talked plenty of times, right? For good reasons, right? The performance has been in the last year significantly better than planned. And we always have conversations about it. So in general, it's important, and it's my job in particular to make sure that if something's not going according to plan, that I know why.
So yeah, from a business unit owner's perspective, anything that's going to be directly allocated to the different business units, we want to know and have an accurate assessment at the beginning of the year, because our goals are twofold. It's the gross profit and contribution margin. Mm-hmm. And so anything that can change that is material. It means that we're ahead for no reason of our own creation, or we're behind for no reason of our own creation. So I think that's really important. We have that dialed in.
Yeah, so we try to make the ramp right. When you're making your projections, if you have a choice of saying, look, for the full year, I'm going to be $100,000, but it might come in, all the $100,000 is going to come in the month of August. I could just flatten it out and be $12,000 a month, right? Or $8,000 a month, whatever it is, right? And flatten it out, knowing that it's all going to come in 1 month. And then every month saying, God, we're ahead on that account. We're ahead on that account. What's happening? Don't do that. Shape it exactly like it's like
where we have known seasonality, do it, and flatten it in cases where we may not know, like
totally.
Okay, T&E sometimes.
Yep.
You may know when you've got a whole bunch of conferences. Sometimes you've got interviews.
Yep.
Hey guys, we've got in 3 minutes or so, a bunch of people are going to be flowing in here. So, is there a closeout?
Yeah. So just to close it out. So through this thing, we've got we went through the quick start guide. Definitely keep on coming to this budgets and P&L section. Go through it. Digest it. The workflow. When you're satisfied with the projections, let us know. We'll create a new version that will be locked down. It'll be called January 2017 Locked, just like July 2017 Locked. That'll be there for posterity. You can always refer to it. The working copy version will be available, and continually roll forward with actual. So as actual come in, it will replace, right? So you'll be able to see how things are coming in, just like your old models. Anytime you want to look at your latest actuals, look in the actuals version. Rinse and repeat. So all this information, this guide here has got, kind of everything you need to know. We are available all the time. Just give us a call. No need to even shoot an email. Give Nate a call. Just even having these, kind of water cooler call conversations about how you're thinking about things is really helpful for us because we want to help you think through planning and be as strategic as possible about it. So let us know. That's all we got. Any questions?
No, thank you.
Yeah, this is a big lift you guys did. Thanks. We'll see how it goes.
Thank you for that. Yep. And Nate has put in a crap load of work. Nate Downs deserves a pat on the back for this.
Thank
So,
you.
it is a whole new world for us. We're excited. Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I was gonna say, so if I heard you correctly, sales, like Scott Martin's gonna kind of work on his sales budget.
And that's just a cost center.
And that's just a cost center, right?
Right.
And so some of those costs, by virtue of the people, get directly allocated to commercial.
Are already out there in the
or
world.
out to.
They're
in
already
the
out
world.
there. Yep.
Is there guidance on like what the rest of the costs? Like, do I build in the commissions that the BDAs are